The ticket I kept. I died knowing exactly what my family thought of me. Not as a son, not as a brother, as a wallet. My mother was crying beside my hospital bed, but I had learned long ago that her tears didn't always mean sadness. Sometimes they meant fear. Sometimes they meant guilt. And sometimes they meant she wanted something. My father stood near the window with his arms crossed, staring outside. My older brother, Dan, sat in the corner, scrolling through his phone. I could barely breathe. Every breath felt like work. My body was weak, and I knew I didn't have much time left. But somehow my hearing was still clear. Too clear. I heard every word. After everything, my mother whispered, "What are we going to do?" My father sighed. "We'll sell the house." My eyes opened slightly. The house. My house. The house I'd worked for years to buy. The house I'd paid for. The house they convinced me to put into their names. I wanted to speak. I couldn't. "And his savings?" Dan asked. My heart sank. Even now, even while I was dying, they were discussing my money, not my life, not the fact that their son was lying in a hospital bed. My money. I stared at the ceiling. How had I become so stupid? I remembered everything. The first time my mother asked me for money. The first time my father promised he would pay me back. The first time Dan borrowed money and never returned it. The first time they told me that family members didn't keep score. I had believed them. I had spent years believing them. Then Dan stood up and walked over to my bed. He looked down at me. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "We'll take care of everything." I looked at him. I knew exactly what he meant. They would take care of everything. Everything I owned. Everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd spent my life building. They would take it, and I would be gone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that I had given them everything. I wanted to ask whether any of them had ever loved me without needing something from me. But I couldn't. My eyes slowly closed, and with the last strength I had, I made a promise. If I had another chance, I would never give them the opportunity again. Then everything went dark. Chapter 1. I woke up. "Eddie." Someone shook my shoulder. "Eddie, wake up." I opened my eyes. For several seconds, I didn't understand what I was seeing. A ceiling. My old ceiling. A cracked patch above my bed. The faded curtains my mother had refused to replace. My old school books were stacked beside my desk. I sat up. My heart began pounding. I looked at my hands. They were young. Healthy. No cuatro. No hospital bracelet. No trembling fingers. I jumped out of bed and ran to the mirror. A teenager stared back at me. My face. But younger. Much younger. No. I touched my cheeks. I touched my hair. I stared at myself. Then I grabbed my phone. The date appeared on the screen. August 23rd. I froze. I knew this date. I remembered it. 10 years before my death. 10 years before my family destroyed everything. 10 years before I lost my home. 10 years before I lost my business. 10 years before I lost my savings. 10 years before I ended up in that hospital bed. My knees became weak. I sat on the edge of the bed. I was alive. I had been reborn. I didn't understand how. I didn't know why. I didn't know whether this was a dream. But I knew one thing. I had another chance. Then a memory struck me so suddenly that I nearly stopped breathing. The lottery ticket. I had forgotten about it for years. But now I remembered. Perfectly. The tiny shop near the bus station. The old man behind the counter. The numbers I'd chosen. The date. Everything. In my first life, I had bought that ticket on this exact day. And the next day, I won. I had won more money than I could have imagined. But the money wasn't what destroyed me. Trust in my family did. This time, I would do things differently. I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Chapter 2. The ticket. I got dressed and left the house. My mother called after me. "Where are you going?" "Out." "For what?" "I'll be back." She frowned. "Don't waste money." I almost laughed. She had no idea. None of them did. I walked toward the bus station. Every step brought back memories. The old bakery. The park. The bus stop where Dan and I used to wait for school. Then I saw the shop. I stopped outside. For a moment, I simply stared at it. In my first life, this place had been the beginning of my fortune, and eventually, the beginning of my downfall. I walked inside. The same bell rang above the door. The same old man stood behind the counter. He looked at me. "Lottery ticket?" I nodded. He handed me one. I paid. Then I held the ticket in my hand. 6 numbers. 6 ordinary numbers. 6 numbers that had once changed my life. This time, however, I wasn't going to let those numbers change me. I put the ticket into my wallet. Then I looked at the shopkeeper. Thank you. I walked outside. I didn't celebrate. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even smile. I simply walked home. Because I knew something my younger self hadn't known. Winning money was easy. Keeping it was the difficult part. Chapter 3. My family. When I walked through the front door, my mother immediately looked at me. Where were you? Out. What were you doing? Nothing. My father was sitting at the kitchen table. Dan was there too. I looked at the 3 of them. My family. The people I had once loved more than myself. And suddenly, I remembered everything. I remember my mother telling me I was selfish whenever I refused to give her money. I remember my father convincing me that family businesses should belong to everyone. I remember Dan borrowing money and never paying it back. I remember the arguments, the lies, the manipulation, and finally, the hospital. My father looked at me. We need to talk. I almost smiled. I remember this conversation. This was where it had started in my previous life. My father needed money for a business. Then my mother needed money. Then Dan needed money. One request became 10. 10 became hundreds. Eventually, everything belonged to them. So when my father said, "We need some help," I simply answered, "No." Everyone went silent. My mother stared at me. "What?" I said no. My father frowned. "You haven't even heard what we need." "I don't need to." "Then lao get." "What's wrong with you?" I looked at him. "Nothing." Then I walked upstairs. Behind me, I heard my mother whisper, "He's becoming selfish." I stopped on the stairs. Those words had once destroyed me. Now they barely touched me. Because I finally understood. They didn't want a son. They wanted someone they could use. Chapter 4. The winning numbers. That night, I sat alone in my room. The lottery numbers appeared on television. My hands became cold. I knew what was coming. The first number appeared. It matched. Then the second. It matched. Then the third. My heart started racing. The fourth. The fifth. The sixth. I stared at the screen. Every number matched. I had won again. I had actually done it. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Then I covered my mouth. I wanted to run downstairs. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell someone. But then I remembered. My father's hands taking documents from me. My mother's voice telling me to trust them. Then telling me that brothers were supposed to help each other. Then the hospital. I slowly lowered my hand. No, iwisparat. Nobody would know. Not my parents. Not Dan. Not my friends. Nobody. I carefully placed the ticket somewhere safe. Then I made myself a promise. This money would not become my family's money. It would remain mine. Chapter 5. My new rules. The next morning, I wrote down 5 rules. I kept the paper in a drawer. The first rule said, never give my family control over my money. The second, never sign anything without independent advice. The third, never tell them exactly how much I have. The fourth, never let guilt make my financial decisions. And the fifth, never sacrifice my future to make other people comfortable. I stared at the list. It looked simple, but I knew how difficult those rules would be. Because my family knew exactly how to manipulate me. They knew which words to use. They knew how to make me feel guilty. They knew how to make selfishness look like generosity. So this time, I prepare myself. I claim the prize legally. Iidat profissionals. I separated my finances. I invested carefully. I didn't buy expensive cars. I didn't suddenly become famous. I didn't post pictures of myself. I didn't tell anyone how much money I had. Instead, I quietly built a new life. I studied. I invested. I started a small business. And I watched my family. Because I knew what was coming. Chapter 6. They started asking questions. It didn't take long for my family to notice that something had changed. I stopped asking them for money. I stopped borrowing. I stopped complaining about expenses. I started buying things for myself without asking permission. One evening, Dan cornered me in the hallway. Where are you getting your money? I looked at him. Working. You're making too much. I laughed. How would you know? You've changed. Maybe that's a good thing. Dan crossed his arms. Did you win something? My heart skipped. For 1 second, I thought he knew, but I kept my face calm. No, he stared at me. I stared back. Eventually, he walked away. That was the first time I realized something. Keeping the secret wouldn't be difficult. Keeping my family from trying to discover it would be. Chapter 7. the requests. The requests started slowly. My mother needed money for repairs. No. My father wanted to invest in a business. No. Dan needed help with a debt. No. Every time, the answer was the same. No. At first, they thought I was joking. Then they became angry. One evening, my mother confronted me. "You're our son." "I know. Then why won't you help us?" "Because helping you doesn't mean giving you everything I have." She stared at me. "You've become selfish." I almost smiled. I've heard that before. My father slammed his hand on the table. "After everything we've done for you?" I looked at him. "Exactly." He frowned. "You should be grateful." I stood. I was grateful. I paused until I realized gratitude doesn't mean surrendering my entire life. Nobody spoke. My father looked furious. My mother looked hurt. Dan looked confused. I walked away. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. Chapter 8. Building a life they couldn't control. I became careful about everything. I didn't let my family know where I kept my money. I didn't give them access to my accounts. I didn't let them sign documents for me. I didn't make investments with them. And I never allowed them to convince me that family automatically meant financial partnership. My business grew. I hired good people. I listened to advice. I learned from professionals. And most importantly, I learned patience. In my first life, I'd spent money whenever someone asked because I wanted problems to disappear. Now I understood that giving people money didn't necessarily solve their problems. Sometimes it simply allowed the problems to grow. Dan's debts were a perfect example. He had borrowed money from me repeatedly. Every time I had paid, but the more I paid, the more he borrowed. Eventually, he had stopped seeing my help as help. He saw it as an entitlement. This time, I let him face his own choices. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Chapter 9. The family begins to crack. My family started fighting among themselves. Without my money, they had to make decisions. My father blamed Dan. Dan blamed my father. My mother blamed everyone. And somehow, they still blamed me. One evening, my father called me. "You've ruined this family." I was silent. No answer. What exactly did I ruin? "You stopped helping us. I stopped paying for things that weren't my responsibility." "You're rich. That doesn't make your expenses mine." He became angry. "You owe us." I closed my eyes. I had heard those words before, but this time, I wasn't 17 anymore. I wasn't afraid. "I don't owe you my future." He hung up. I sat there for several minutes. Part of me still wanted my father to understand, but another part of me knew something important. I didn't need his permission to move forward. Chapter 10. The truth about my first life. Years passed. My business became successful. My investments grew. I bought a beautiful home. I traveled. I met people who didn't know anything about my family. People who liked me because of who I was, not because of what I could provide. But my family became increasingly suspicious. Eventually, Dan found out. I don't know exactly how. Maybe he found a document. Maybe someone talked. Maybe he simply put the pieces together. One evening, he walked in my house and threw a piece of paper onto the table. "You won." I looked at it. Then I looked at him. Yes. His face went pale. "How long?" "Years." "You knew we'd find out?" Eventually, he stared at me. "Why didn't you tell us?" I laughed quietly. "Because I remember." "Remember what?" "My previous life." He stared at me. "What are you talking about?" "I remember dying." Dan's expression changed. "I remember being in the hospital." He said nothing. "I remember hearing you, Mom, and Dad talking about my money while I was dying. Then step at backward. I remember everything you did." He looked frightened. For the first time in my life, my brother had nothing to say. Chapter 11. The apologies. After Dan left, my parents came to my house. My mother was crying. My father looked angry. Dan wouldn't look at me. My mother spoke first. "We're sorry," he said quietly. She continued. "We didn't understand how much we'd hurt you." I almost laughed. "You knew." "No, you knew exactly what you were doing." She shook her head. "We were family. That's not an excuse." My father interrupted. "Your brother made mistakes." I looked at him. "So did you." He became silent. My mother wiped her eyes. "Can't we start over?" I thought about it. In my first life, I would have immediately forgiven them. I would have apologized for making them feel bad. I would have offered money. This time I didn't. "I can forgive you," I said. My mother looked hopeful. But forgiveness doesn't mean giving you access to my life. Her face fell. I continued. I don't hate you. My father stared at me. But I don't trust you. Nobody argued, because they knew I was right. Chapter 12. I didn't need revenge. My family tried everything. They apologized. They begged. They promised they had changed. Then they became angry. Then they threatened legal action. But this time I was ready. I had lawyers. I had documents. I had records. I had professionals protecting my interests. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I simply refused to rescue them. That distinction mattered, because their lives began falling apart without my money. Not because I attacked them, because they had built their lives around spending money they didn't have. The bills arrived. They had to pay them. Their debts came due. They had to deal with them. Their unnecessary expenses had to stop. They had to learn how to live within their means. For years, they had believed I was the solution to every problem. Now, they finally had to solve their own problems. And slowly they did. Chapter 13. The final bill. One afternoon, my mother called me. Eddie, yes. We can't pay the electricity bill. I was silent. She started crying. Please. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I remembered being 17. I remembered wanting nothing more than my family to love me. Then I remember the hospital. I can't pay it. You have so much money. I know. You're really going to let your own mother struggle? I took a breath. No. She stopped crying. I'll let you take responsibility for your own life. There was silence. Then she hung up. I put the phone down. It hurt. More than I expected. Because no matter how much my family had hurt me, they were still my family. But I had finally learned something. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel good. Sometimes the boundary feels cruel when you're used to having none. I sat there for a long time. Then I looked at my financial statements. Everything was fine. My future was safe. I hadn't abandoned them. I had simply stopped carrying them. Chapter 14. The Last Dinner. Years later, I invited my parents and Dan to dinner. They arrived quietly. They looked different, older, more tired. But there was something else in their faces. Acceptance. They had learned something over the years. They couldn't force me anymore. We sat around the table. Nobody spoke. Finally, my mother asked, "Why did you invite us?" I placed an envelope on the table. "This is the last thing you'll ever receive from me." My father reached for it. I stopped him. "Open it after I leave." My mother looked at me. "Can we fix things?" I thought about that question. I tried. She lowered her head. "You didn't let me." I stood. "I don't hate you." My father looked surprised. "I don't want revenge." I paused. "I just don't want to live the same life twice." Dan looked at the floor. I walked toward the door. My father called my name. "Eddie." I turned. "We're still your family." I looked at him for a long moment. "Then you should have treated me like family when I had something you wanted." Nobody answered. I opened the door and left. Chapter 15. What I left behind. They opened the envelope. Inside was a list. Every bill I had paid in my previous life. Every loan. Every repair. Every medical expense. Every debt. Every time I had rescued them. At the bottom was one sentence. "I paid for your lives once. From now on, you pay for your own." My mother cried. My father stared at the total. Dan couldn't speak. For years, they had told themselves that I owed them. Now they could see the truth. They had owed me, and I had finally stopped paying. But there was something else inside the envelope. A second piece of paper. It wasn't a bill. It wasn't an insult. It was a budget. A realistic budget for their household. Housing, food, utilities, transportation, debt payments, everything they needed to survive. And at the bottom, I had written, "You can do this without me." I didn't want them destroyed. I wanted them independent. That was the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge would have meant wanting them to suffer. I didn't. I wanted them to learn. Chapter 16. Their new life. The following years were different. My father found work again. My mother started a small business selling handmade decorations. Dan got a steady job. They sold things they didn't need. They moved into a smaller home. They learned to budget. They stopped spending money they didn't have. They started paying their own bills. At first, they hated it. Then they got used to it. Eventually, they became better at managing money than they had ever been. One day, my mother called me. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hello, Eddie." "Yes." There was a long pause. "I wanted to tell you something." "What?" We paid the electricity bill. I smiled. Good. We paid it ourselves. I know. She laughed softly. I never thought we'd be proud of something like that. I didn't know what to say. Then she said, "Thank you." I looked out the window. For what? For making us learn. I closed my eyes. You're welcome. We said goodbye. It was the first conversation we'd had in years that didn't involve money. And strangely, it felt like the first honest conversation we'd ever had. Chapter 17, My Second Life. I didn't become a different person after winning the lottery. I became the person I had always been afraid to become. Independent, confident, unwilling to be manipulated. I helped people. I donated money. I supported young entrepreneurs. I paid for things when I genuinely wanted to. But I never again confused kindness with obligation. My family eventually became financially stable. They weren't rich. They weren't living the life they had imagined, but they were paying their own bills. My father worked. My mother ran her small business. Dan continued working and repaying his debts. Every electricity bill, every grocery bill, every repair, every mistake, they paid for everything themselves. And strangely enough, I was happy about it, because I never wanted them destroyed. I just wanted them to understand what I'd spent my entire first life refusing to understand. Their problems weren't mine. Their debts weren't mine. Their choices weren't mine. And their future wasn't mine to fund. Epilogue, the ticket. I kept the original lottery ticket in a frame in my office. It wasn't valuable anymore. The money had already changed my life. But the ticket itself reminded me of something much more important. Whenever I looked at it, I remembered the hospital. I remembered the fear. I remembered hearing my family discuss my money while I was dying. Then I looked around my office, at everything I'd built, everything I had protected, everything I had earned, and I smiled, because the lottery had given me money, but being reborn had given me something far more valuable, a chance to choose myself. I thought about the boy I had once been, the boy who believed that saying yes made him a good son, the man I had become, the man who finally understood that saying no didn't make him cruel. It made him free. I picked up the framed ticket. For a moment, I looked at those 6 numbers. They had once represented fortune. Now, they represented something else. A second chance. A warning. A reminder. I had been given another life. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it trying to earn love from people who only valued what I could give them. I had my own home, my own business, my own future, my own choices. And most importantly, I had peace. My family had finally learned to pay their own way. My father paid his bills. My mother paid hers. Dan paid his debts. Nobody came knocking on my door expecting me to save them anymore. And I didn't have to hate them. I didn't have to punish them. I didn't have to destroy them. I simply had to stop being their solution. That was enough. I placed the ticket back on the wall. Then I walked toward the window. Outside, the city was alive. Cars moved through the streets. People hurried home. Lights came on across the buildings. The world kept moving. So did I. I smiled, because once upon a time, I had died believing my life belonged to my family. Now I knew the truth. It had always belonged to me. This time I took it back, and this time, nobody was taking it away from me.